Have you ever had that feeling, deep down, that you're meant for something bigger, but there's this secret struggle that just keeps holding you back? It's something a lot of people go through, but almost nobody talks about. Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into what one source says are the 5 key reasons why people who feel that higher calling often face this really intense, hidden battle with lust. Let's get right into it. So the big question is why? Why does this particular struggle seem to hit the hardest for those who feel like they've been set apart for something great? It's a weird paradox, right? But it's not new. The source actually points to people in the Bible like King David, a man after God's own heart, who got caught in a trap with Bathsheba. Or think about Samson, whose incredible strength from God was completely undone by his own personal weaknesses. So yeah, this has been a thing for a very, very long time. And now we're going to explore why. And this is where the source gives us a totally different way to look at it. It's not just about a lack of willpower or some simple human flaw. No, the idea here is that this is a targeted spiritual attack aimed specifically at people with a powerful sense of purpose. To back this idea up, the source points to this really well-known verse from Ephesians, and the takeaway is pretty clear. The real fight isn't with what we can see and touch. It's happening on a whole other level, a spiritual one. And in that battle, lust is framed as one of the main weapons being used against us. Okay, so with that foundation set, the source breaks it all down into 5 specific reasons why this struggle can feel so intense and so private. Let's walk through them one by one. First up, the first reason is what the source calls heightened sensitivity. And the idea is that being more spiritually connected, well, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. So, the thinking goes that when you're more tuned in to the spiritual realm, you don't just feel the good things more strongly, you also become a much clearer target for negative forces. Lust is presented as this go-to tool to distract you, to weaken you if you have a divine purpose. Basically, the temptation feels more intense because, from this viewpoint, the attack actually is more intense. Second, reason number 2 is all about the danger of trying to do it all on your own. The source calls this the isolation trap. The path of someone who feels chosen can be a pretty lonely one, can it? But here's the thing. While that quiet time can be amazing for your spiritual connection, the source warns that it also makes you incredibly vulnerable. When you don't have a strong support system or anyone to be accountable to, this struggle becomes a totally private internal war. And that secrecy, it's like fuel for the fire. It makes it so much harder to overcome and leads so many people to just suffer in complete silence.
Okay, our third point.
This third reason really builds on the last one. It's a huge concept from the source. The greater your calling, the greater the attacks you're going to face. The logic here is pretty straightforward. The more potential you have to make a positive impact in the world, the bigger of a threat you become to opposing forces. And lust is identified as this strategic weapon designed specifically to drain your spiritual energy, pull you away from your purpose, and create distance between you and your divine connection. So in this view, the attack is always going to match the level of the calling.
Next up, number 4.
Reason number 4 turns the focus inward to something the source calls unhealed wounds. The whole idea is that these old hurts can create spiritual openings for an attack. Now, this is a really powerful one. This source is suggesting that our past emotional pain, things like rejection, abandonment, deep heartbreak, it doesn't just vanish. If we don't heal from it, these scars act like spiritual open doors, and they leave us vulnerable. And that's when lust can sneak in as this counterfeit connection, a fake comfort that seems to fill that empty space, but only for a moment. And of course, that just kicks off a vicious cycle of temporary relief, followed by this deep, crushing shame, and it's so hard to break out of. And finally, and this brings us to our 5th and final reason, which really gets to the heart of that internal conflict, the tension between having strong gifts but living with weak flesh. We've all felt this, right? That classic tension. On one side, you might have these incredible spiritual gifts, a clear calling on your life, but on the other side, you're still human. You're still in this body with all its natural weaknesses and desires. And it creates this constant internal tug of war. The source makes it really clear that no matter how spiritually gifted you are, you're not immune to the pull of the flesh. And here's the key. This isn't a battle you can just coast through. The source really emphasizes that without consistent spiritual discipline, things like prayer and fasting, our human weakness can start to take over, and that fight gets so much harder. It's a tension that needs constant, conscious effort to manage. So after laying out all 5 of these really tough reasons, the source doesn't just leave us in despair. The message is actually one of hope. It's saying, look, this battle is absolutely real, it's intense, but it is not unwinnable. There is a way to overcome this. And according to the source, that path forward is built on 3 key pillars. First is spiritual discipline, that daily work of strengthening your spirit that we just talked about. Second is accountability, which means you have to break that cycle of isolation, push past the shame, and find somebody you trust to talk to. And finally, inner healing, really taking the time to deal with those old wounds so they can't be used as open doors for an attack anymore. And that's where the source leaves us, with this incredibly powerful, direct question. It reframes the whole struggle, not as your destiny, but as your choice. It's a call to action, really, a challenge to actually engage in the fight instead of just surrendering to it. So, will you fight or will you fall? It's a challenging question and definitely something to reflect on. Thank you so much for exploring this with me today.